The bottom line here, it's extremely easy for calcium lactate to convert into an ionized form of calcium, which is calcium bicarbonate, easier than any other form of calcium. And as I said, calcium citrate is ionizable, but it's more complex and there's multi-steps involved. Calcium carbonate is almost non-ionizable. I mean, you could take some calcium carbonate, but you'd have to have an extremely acid stomach to start.
And a fantastic liver.
And a fantastic liver, yes.
And even still, it will only convert about 5 to 6% of that elemental calcium carbonate into ionizable calcium.
Yeah, this is why
blood.
I've always been on my patients about that coral calcium isn't what you think it is. I mean, it's calcium carbonate, and there's a reason why the corals are there. I was just asked the other day by someone new to us if I was the forbidden doctor. Well, of course, I said no. The forbidden doctor is not me at all.
We are not the forbidden doctor. Jack is not the forbidden doctor. It's in you.
The forbidden doctor is that magical, mystical power inside of you that is controlling and healing everything.
It's that beautiful, marvelous, almost miraculous force that controls all healing.
It's that innate intelligence, that life force-directed influence that triggered your DNA to guide the building of your body after conception.
Yeah, it's that power that sustains your life, repairs your wounds and lesions, and it never stops working. It's that essential part of you that keeps you alive and heals your every hurt.
This is the forbidden doctor. It's not me. It's that part of you the powers that be have decreed forbidden to ever learn about or even consider, and never ever rely upon. For it is forbidden that you even know this life force exists at all.
You are your own forbidden doctor.
Yes. Hey everybody, it's Dr. Jack.
And Mary.
And welcome back to the Forbidden Doctor podcast. This is podcast episode 176.
Wow.
Cramps, leg, menstrual, and heart.
Yes.
So welcome to this Forbidden Doctor podcast where we reveal your body's amazing ability to heal itself, where we question Western medicine's automatic drugs for everything and drugs for anything approach to disease management.
Yeah, we have some exciting, probably unknown to most of you, forbidden information about a surprisingly easy method of reducing and even eliminating cramping pain.
Yes.
And how pain from cramps can actually be a warning sign of even something more serious. I mean,
yes.
Some serious underlying conditions.
Yes, and what we're going to talk about is where cramps, for the most part, come from and non-medication approaches that many of our patients have found very effective.
Yeah, leg cramps, menstrual cramps, and heart cramps, the scariest of them all.
But before we get to... I'm sorry.
But before we get to that, for our regular listeners, the next 4 minutes is our financial stuff. You can fast forward through it if you choose. But for our new listeners, please listen at least one time so you understand how we do things around here.
So before we begin this informative and forbidden podcast, we want to take a few minutes to talk about why we do not have sponsors.
Yeah, we've been approached many times to sell different products on our show.
But we've always been compelled to resist these financially tempting offers, because many times they lead to an attempt for editorial control over what we say.
Yeah, and what we're doing here is too important to be controlled by corporate interests. So we never allow this kind of advertising on our show.
And so that said, we don't make money from these podcasts. All of our income comes from your interaction with us and what we have to offer, and from the sale of our Forbidden Doctor products and supplements from the oldest and original whole food supplement manufacturer in the United States, Standard Process.
Yeah.
But we're not paid by Standard Process. Indeed, they distance themselves from open internet promotion because of constant scrutiny from the FDA.
Yeah, and as a result, they do not advertise or pay for advertising outside of a licensed healthcare professional's office.
And the reason for this is really simple, because their products are very powerful and they actually work.
Yeah.
So they need to be careful about people making claims. Others have mentioned that while the knowledge we share can't be found anywhere else, it is often tied to Standard Process.
Yeah, and that also includes our own ageless thyroid and long life energy enzymes products.
Yes, and so you might ask, could not our own products be creating a conflict of interest? Mm-hmm. I mean, have we mistakenly created infomercials instead of free knowledge podcasts?
No, we do this on purpose.
Yes, because years of experience on the radio and in our clinics and almost 500,000 downloads of our podcasts have taught us a few things. And the most important is that the type of nutrient-dense foods that most of us need to get our bodies actually healing from years of malnutrition are not easily integrated into most of our lives.
Yeah, the quest for excellence in nutrition has never been an easy task. Just face it, nobody wants to eat raw liver. But absolutely no one will sign up to eat raw liver daily for 6 months. So we feel therapeutic supplementation is sometimes very critical in the healing process.
Yes, it is. So let us be clear. We talk about standard process because this is how you can get whole foods in a concentrated form that you would never, ever eat on a daily basis.
And the reason we do our podcast this way is because it has saved our lives and countless others that we've worked with over the years.
Yeah, so we sell supplements.
Yeah.
And so we try to give free knowledge away about how nutrition touches every aspect of our lives. And so necessarily these two are going to overlap. But the bottom line is, we may mention supplements that you can get from our website, but the knowledge we share is real, and you can take that with you forever, whether or not you ever buy anything from us.
But you can support us in keeping this podcast on the air with a donation at forbiddendoctor.com/donate.
Yes.
Or if you're ready to take your first steps for your own health, you can join our family by going to our website and taking our free symptom survey.
Now, we understand, we really do, that some of you may feel real hardship with even a modest purchase and cannot afford even a single month's supply of supplements. So please know then, it is completely okay if you do not buy our supplements or financially support our show in any way if you cannot afford to.
Yes. However, there are many ways to support us for free. You can give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. That's easy. Or a thumbs up on YouTube. Wherever you listen to our podcast, just give us a good rating.
Yeah, and if you already support the show, thank you. Truly, thank you. And please know that you are the very reason we fight this good fight. I mean, your support makes this all possible.
So now let's get back to the forbidden information they don't want you to know.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And before we do, we've got some nice thank yous here from our listeners, and just want you to know we really appreciate it.
Yeah, a really nice guy. I guess we can't say his name, but
Roy, well, you can say Roy.
Roy, you know who you are, Roy.
He's a true gentleman, and he always wears the coolest kind of flat-rimmed cowboy hats when he comes into the clinic.
Oh.
Really nice guy.
So he says, Dr. Jack and Mary, I cannot thank you and your whole staff enough for the incredible work you do. You're so cool.
Are we not?
And another lady that recently went on a trip to Italy with her husband, she said, we would not have survived the trip without our supplements. We're very grateful for all you do at the Forbidden Doctor. And literally, we mean everybody. We have the best staff. We didn't just help them. This lady is a VIP member, so she can text us, and she texted us from Italy a number of times.
Yes, almost
had some
at least
problems.
every other day.
Yeah, we helped her through those. She was so grateful. And so, it's priceless to be a VIP member. So just so you know. So, and before we jump into our podcast, we also want to remind you about our free symptom survey that we offer on our homepage of our website, forbiddendoctor.com. It's the most comprehensive survey you'll ever take. It has tons of questions. And after you're done, not only will you get a personalized free protocol, and that saves you money because you're not buying things that you don't need. After you get done with that and you get your personal protocol, you have the opportunity to have another free thing, a free 30-minute phone consultation if you want to.
And you are, of course, are not obligated in any way, and all of this at no charge to you. And remember, your patronage of our offers keeps this podcast on the air.
And now on to things they don't want you to know.
Well, if you have ever watched a sporting event, you might have seen a player crumpled over with a cramp or taken off the field as you can hardly watch a early NFL football game. I mean, August, September, where the heat is really high, without seeing somebody go into serious quadricep or calf or hamstring
fall down, roll
muscle
up.
Cramp.
Yeah, roll around on the floor with terrible leg cramps.
Yeah, you may have seen it at a basketball game or something else. And, it kind of elicits laughter in the people that are watching.
Yeah,
But
which is
a
cruel.
cramp in the heart is not funny.
Yeah.
Now, we've got three basic types of muscles in the body. The skeletal muscle, which makes up most of the muscles. Smooth muscle, which is like our intestines. And glands and other parts of the body that are different than skeleton. And the cardiac muscle, the heart muscle. Mm-hmm. And they're all essentially made out of the same kind of material. It's the relationship of two proteins called actin and myosin that work together, calcium being the trigger. And the thing that makes the difference between the three is something that's called refractory time. Refractory time is how fast after a muscle contracts can you make it contract again. Now, you can, like if you were to bring your wrist up to your shoulder and like you're contracting your bicep muscle, you can sit there and do it just super fast over and over and over again because skeletal muscle has a short refractory time. The reason there is a lub-dub space, lub-dub space, lub-dub in the heart is because heart muscle has a slightly longer refractory time, meaning rest time between contractions.
Which is so important.
Which is very important because, as we know, if you live to be 100 years and you have a normal heart rate, your heart will sleep 66 of those 100 years because it's resting longer than it's contracting.
Yeah.
And in smooth muscle, like that contracts the stomach, contracts the intestines to move food through the food system.
The peristalsis.
The peristalsis. Some of those contractions can take a day, hours to a day, or days to finish the contraction.
That's why it takes 24 hours for your food to go through your digestive system.
Very good, because the digestive thing requires slower muscle contraction, and it has longer refractory time. So the reason that I bring all this up...
Because the heart is the most electrical organ in the human body.
Right, and it has a rather quick refractory, but not as fast as skeletal. And also, interestingly enough, the heart is the most resistant muscle that can go into a cramp.
Well, that's good.
Well, yeah, because the nature of heart muscle being so different than skeletal or smooth, it usually takes more than just dehydration or calcium deficiency or even muscle fatigue to get the heart to cramp. Though these problems can lead to a heart cramp.
Yeah, the dehydration.
Calcium deficiency, muscle fatigue.
I'm just tired.
It usually takes an imbalance in the autonomic nervous system to really stop the heart. And we have a podcast on this very thing, numbers 127 and 128, what does and what doesn't cause a heart attack that we would refer you to.
Well, let's just start off talking about one of the causes of cramping in the muscles, even the heart, which is a muscle. And that would be oxygen deprivation.
Yes.
So when you're exhausted, a fresh supply, of course, of oxygen gets into your heart, and the more you exert the muscle, the more it burns up the supply of oxygen. And when it runs out of oxygen, what is the mitochondria in the heart cells? What are they burning instead of oxygen?
Yeah, why does the heart keep beating when it's run out of oxygen? Sugar.
Sugar,
Yeah,
glucose.
And lactic acid is a byproduct of the breakdown of that sugar, and that produces lactic acid in the muscle where lactic acid should not be.
No, not there.
You go out and do a lot of extra physical work you're not usually used to. You get that little stitch in the side. That's lactic acid building up.
Yeah.
Right, and so that rapid buildup of lactic acid due to the oxygen deprivation will cause a real powerful cramp until enough oxygen can be restored to where that muscle stops burning sugar for energy and get back to using oxygen. And in the heart, that's true about the heart as well as skeletal muscle.
Yeah, so when you breathe, you're not breathing oxygen into your muscle, you're breathing it into your lungs, obviously, which then it will transfer that gas into your blood in exchange for
carbon dioxide.
CO2, carbon dioxide, which you exhale.
So this happens in your other muscles of the body, such as when you're running, you can get that cramp like I'm saying, and the muscle's deprived, lactic acid builds up, sugar is burned instead of oxygen because sugar has an oxygen ion in the sugar molecule. And then suddenly your cell is just drowning in carbon dioxide because you can't breathe it out fast enough, which causes a rapid local acidification of the tissue until the CO2 can be released.
Yeah, and what can you do in that case? The coaches often teach this to athletes. You need to do some deep exhaling.
Yes.
Just slow.
Yeah, we're not talking about hypervent.
No.
That will make the problem worse.
Yes, and they teach them to do this to get rid of the overabundance of the CO2.
Yeah, and when the heart doesn't get enough oxygen or too much CO2, that can cause angina or angina, depending on what school you went to, when the heart becomes oxygen deficient. So when you're breathless and you can't get enough oxygen into the blood to feed the muscle, that's when that happens.
Yeah. So the heart goes into an oxygen deprivation cramp. It's drowning in CO2.
Yes.
And it's burning all the glucose it can find and converting it to lactic acid into the muscle. Because, you need to understand.
Lactic acid just has to be in the right place in the body. I mean, if it's on the skin, if it's in your GI tract, or if it's in your mouth, it's wonderful. Yeah. Because it's the most valuable substance so that we don't become susceptible to all forms of bacteria and yeast overgrowth.
Yeah, most people know of lactic acid because of cramps. You know, they're like, oh, that's a lactic acid buildup. And that's a byproduct of muscle fatigue, not lactic acid in the GI tract.
Where it's supposed to be.
So you need to keep that straight. You know, I've had people ask me, if I take this lactic acid yeast wafers, am I going to get cramps? Because they've heard of that.
Good question.
Yeah, no, it's a byproduct of muscle fatigue. Yes. It is not from the GI tract.
Right.
Just like when you want HCl, hydrochloric acid in your stomach to break down protein and minerals. You don't want hydrochloric acid in your muscles.
No,
I mean, that would be a tragedy.
No, and the point is you don't want lactic acid anywhere but in the GI tract.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's wonderful in many locations of the body, but the muscle is not one of them.
Yeah, we got to reorganize our thinking on lactic acid. It's the reason we have lactic acid in our food, such as, like yogurt and kefir, all fermented foods, like sauerkraut, buttermilk, cheese. You need lactic acid and the yeast and the bacteria that grow in lactic acid. You need that.
Yeah, but not in the muscles. Right, and this is one of the most important foods you can give the gut so that the proper flora grows there. So one of the supplements then that would be helpful in avoiding cramps of the heart and increasing oxygen therein would be Cataplex E2. But there's also Cataplex C, but understand it has to be the whole food.
Yeah.
The whole food vitamin C.
Yeah, not the ascorbic acid. In a whole food vitamin C, you have the whole complex, of course, which includes the vitamin J factor.
Yeah, and you've probably not heard of vitamin J. The FDA, the FDA I don't think has had any classes in nutrition any more than medical doctors do. But because the FDA is run by medical doctors. So they don't know about vitamin J. They don't know about vitamin T. They don't know about...
They don't even know about vitamin F.
Or F.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
But vitamin J, this is discovered a long time ago, increases the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood.
Yeah, so the whole food vitamin C.
That's right. Whole food vitamin C is what I'm talking about, which is why ascorbic acid is not good enough, because ascorbic acid really isn't, despite what the FDA says, vitamin C. It's just a part of the vitamin C whole molecule.
So let me get this. The vitamin C improves the ability of the blood to rapidly carry oxygen.
Yes, whole food vitamins.
You were telling me earlier it's like on the hemoglobin.
Yes, it improves the hemoglobin is what lines the red blood cell.
The oxygen carrying capacity.
And it improves the hemoglobin's job. It's like putting an extra, you see those big transport trucks going down the highway, but every now and then you'll see 2 or 3. 1 tractor trailer, but 3 trailers hooked up to it.
Those guys.
That's what whole food vitamin C will do to your hemoglobin. It sticks extra trailers on there, so it does a better job of carrying oxygen.
Yeah, and we mammals, we have to get our vitamin C from our food. So that's really important that you don't take the synthetic ascorbic acid. So that's vitamin C and Cataplex E2, which is another supplement. These are really critical for getting oxygen into your heart. Cataplex E2 is the natural oxygen concentration factor. It helps the cardiac muscle to relax and release the stored oxygen. So E2 is part of the vitamin E complex.
Yes.
Now, again, not the synthetic vitamin E.
Not the tocopherol
oils. Yeah, the whole food vitamin complex. And it prevents the exhaustion of oxygen, and it helps the body to conserve the oxygen for emergencies. Running out of oxygen in the muscle. And that's in like angina.
Exactly.
In the case of angina.
So E2,
Cataplex E2.
And its standard process that gives the designation E2 is the natural replacement from a preventative standpoint, say of nitroglycerin. And nitroglycerin has a very interesting psychotropic effect on the brain.
Yeah, they're not quite sure how it works.
No, they don't. But they know for some reason it causes the heart muscle to dilate and rapidly relax and release oxygen. We don't normally we know the heart needs oxygen. That's what the cardio or the coronary arteries are for. Mm-hmm. But it also stores oxygen in cases of emergency, and that's what the nitroglycerin does. Boom, immediate release, stops the angina, because suddenly the heart's having a lot of pain. Well, E2 does the same thing, only it's a little slower. It doesn't, and whatever. We're not telling anybody not to take their nitroglycerin by any means.
We're hoping you won't need it.
We're just hoping you won't need it. So it brings the heart out of that death cramp that we know as angina.
Yeah. So if you take Cataplex E2 on a regular basis, it tends to prevent the angina process.
Yes.
Every day. Chew up 4 to 5 of them. Let them soak in your saliva for a minute, and that will release the oxygen.
Yeah, we don't know the exact dose because it's different for different people. We live at 6,200 feet. And we have a bottle of E2
in our guest rooms.
In our guest rooms, because we tell people who come here from sea level or lower altitudes,
their hearts,
you may want to take some of this stuff because you may, after you've been here a day or so, feel a little out of breath.
Their heart needs more oxygen.
Yep.
And we've had many guests say, wow, that stuff works fast and it works well.
It does.
Yeah, so if you're prone to heart cramps, you want to take like 12 a day until you haven't had any angina or cramps for a while. Then you can maintain that on just 4 to 5 tablets a day, for preventative.
Yeah, and 16 tablets if you're having serious pains is not. Now, let me say this. If you're having serious pains, you better get to the ER.
And take your nitroglycerin.
Yeah. But in training the heart to respond quicker to this, 16 tablets a day is not uncommon. I mean, you can drop down from there. I mean, and again, as I said, no one's saying to stop the nitroglycerin. But as you said, it's on demand. You don't need it, you don't need it.
Yeah.
But using Cataplex E2 can prevent the demand for it from occurring. So remember, Cataplex E2 and Cataplex C to increase the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood and the storage of oxygen in the heart.
Okay, and another source of muscle cramps, much less frequent, though, is from too much sweating and a loss of cell salts.
Yeah, so if you're in a humid environment and you're working hard, and I grew up in a humid environment back on the East Coast in the Washington, D.C. area, and someone with ultimate authority in the home made sure that we worked hard. But you may be a steel plant worker, you may be a landscape worker in the hot Houston sun, and you're preconditioned to that by going on a low-salt diet because that's what they tell you should do. Well, you lose those cell salts, and that also can create tremendous cramps in the body as you shut down the electrolytes that are necessary that we get from a good dose of salt in our life.
Yeah, and did you know that in these factories, these steel factories where there's a lot of heat involved or sweating or that type of thing, like in the steel mills, you'll find by their water fountains, they have salt tablets.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, that is to prevent the massive cramps, in their heart or in their muscles to occur. Okay?
Yep.
Because you lose salt when you urinate, but when you're sweating in these super hot environments, and you become rapidly dehydrated.
Yeah, so you'd want to use, did I interrupt you?
No, I'm just saying it seems counterintuitive to use salt when you're dehydrated, but you have to keep that electrical...
well, you need the sodium and you need the chloride from the salt.
To keep your heartburn.
Yeah, to keep the electrolyte balance inside the system
so you don't cramp.
Is critical.
This is the cell
even
salts
for nerve transmission, even for gas exchange in the lungs. I mean, all these things are necessary for a proper electrolyte balance. So you'd want to use about 6, if you're in these conditions, you'd want to use about 6 to 12 capsules a day of something called AC carbamide, which is just ammonia and carbon dioxide bound together. I would take carbon dioxide. Yes, because your body makes carbamide. We call it urea.
Yeah.
And it makes it every day, and it's very important when you're sweating a lot that you can lose too much carbamide. Now, urea is attached to almost every cell in the body and has an awful lot to do with opening and closing important windows of hydration on those cells. So it's very important if you're sweating a lot, you can lose too much carbamide. So if you're sweating and you start experiencing nausea or fainting or becoming incoherent, too much loss of cell salts, you want to take some carbamide to make sure you're getting enough salt. And remember, too little salt will absolutely destroy your adrenal glands.
So too little salts.
Yes.
Not enough. And remember, it has to be good salt. The natural
we're
salt.
not talking about
with minerals.
100% sodium chloride sitting on your
No.
kitchen table.
No, we want the whole food again. That's what we're all about.
Yeah, so if you don't get enough salt, you're destroying your adrenal glands on the installment plan, as I was mentioning there a moment ago. And once you get your salt intake corrected, you'll probably want to take some Drenamine to go along with it to help build up the adrenal glands.
Yeah, Drenamine is another standard process. It's an incredible. I have women come into the office clutching Drenamine to their chest saying, "Give me my Drenamine." It's just such an incredible product for rebuilding the adrenal glands. Let's move on to another kind of vicious cramping. And that's the kind that's experienced during menstruation, during your periods. Yeah. Standard process discovered quite a while ago that these horrible cramps have a tremendous response to gamma linolenic acid, called GLA for short.
Now, GLA is not found abundantly in the food chain. Mother's milk makes GLA, the gamma linolenic acid. It's made in the liver from linoleic acid, one of the essentials. But if you don't have good liver function that's converting the linoleic acid into GLA, then a woman during her period can be in a bad way. See, the infant suckling at the breast doesn't have a mature enough liver to make GLA out of the linoleic acid. So if you're using a baby formula that has linoleic acid in it, the infant's not going to convert it to GLA.
Yeah, well, they can confuse people because nobody knows what that means.
Yeah, well, good point.
Yeah,
good point.
So they just put it in. But luckily, when they realized this about 20 years ago, Nestle, the hot chocolate company,
Well, it's the world's largest food manufacturer.
Yeah, and they actually gave grants to Dr. Gonzalez to study cancer and enzymes.
Yep.
I mean, they're a pretty great company. But 20 years ago, Nestle, the world's largest maker of baby formula, started adding GLA, gamma linolenic acid. In other words, already converted from linoleic acid, converted to gamma linoleic acid to the formulas in the form of blackcurrant seed oil. Yeah. So, but still, it's just another reason to not use formula, except for, Nestle's. That's wonderful they did that. But mother's milk is always superior because it already has the GLA. Babies can't convert.
Yeah.
They have immature livers.
They have an immature liver. They do for about the first 2 years of life.
Yeah.
So, and we're bringing all these linolenic acid, and linoleic acid, all this stuff in here because we want to talk about arachidonic acid.
Which is the final conversion.
We're going to be talking about what can alleviate menstrual cramp pain.
Yes.
And so the baby then converts the gamma linolenic acid into arachidonic acid after the mother's liver has converted the linoleic acid into gamma linolenic acid. Now, anybody, if you've had biochemistry, you can follow us through this really quick. It's pretty, if you haven't, I know it sounds like a lot of mumbo jumbo.
But arachidonic acid, the final conversion.
That's the one we want.
It's so important. It's important in the formation of certain proteins. Proteins are the building blocks of our body, and specifically the repair and growth of skeletal muscle.
Yes, that's true.
So these muscles that cramp up, we're getting to this.
And it's very abundant in the brain. The health of the brain is reliant on sufficient amounts of arachidonic acid. It also helps with stress, and I was going to bring in some research here that was done on rats. Unfortunately, they're not around to talk about it anymore. But when they found out the higher the level of arachidonic acid in the brain of a newborn rat, the quicker it learned and the smarter it became.
Awesome.
But not smart enough to escape the laboratory. and low levels of arachidonic acid in adults is shown to contribute to Alzheimer's and bipolar disorders.
Yeah, so arachidonic acid usually comes from meat and eggs, but it can be synthesized from linolenic acids. So a good whole food source is from blackcurrant seed oil. Now, that's the highest form of arachidonic acid in our supplements. But you can also get it from evening primrose oil. That's a good source. And borage seeds.
Yeah, now, blackcurrant is a food. The seed of blackcurrant is very popular in Scotland, where they make great blackcurrant seed jam.
They don't have any Alzheimer's over there.
No.
Or bipolar problems.
No, and it's a long established as a very great food. It's just unfortunately the jam is filled with sugar.
Anyway, for some reason, blackcurrant has a tremendous reputation for reducing menstrual cramps. It has had that reputation far and wide for years. So what we recommend is take 6 to 9 pearls a day. And realize these are hermetically sealed in a soft gel pearl because Dr. Roy Lee was a freak about his pearls and he didn't want them to ever hit oxygen and start to degrade.
So when do you take them? The whole month?
No. You just take before. Well, you can take them while you're having cramps, but it's best to start a couple days before, before you start your period, and you will be quite happy to discover you won't have cramps, or they'll be significantly reduced.
No,
you can't say that because you've never had them.
No, but I've mentioned it to many of my female patients.
Yeah.
Because they'll, is what you're doing, will it help me with menstrual pain? And, well, yes, it usually does. The correction of the spine usually does, but there's some other things you can add to it.
Do you know they found nerve fibers in every single egg a woman has?
Yes.
That goes right to the brain.
Yeah, it was thought that ovulation occurred through the maturing of the egg through the 30-day cycle, 28-day, whatever, simply by hormonal stimulation.
Mm-mm.
Well, hormonal stimulation is very important, but when they finally discovered electron microscopes and started looking smaller and smaller and smaller, that's when they found viruses, because you couldn't really see a virus with a regular microscope. But they also discovered interesting things in the human body, what you just mentioned.
Yeah, so a correction, a NUCA correction, can free up that nerve innervation to the egg.
We have helped many infertile women, many, more than I can count, become pregnant simply by the correction to the spine.
Okay, so, and then also in a minute, we're going to tell you about another fatty acid that helps significantly with menstrual cramps.
Yeah, now there's another insidious form of cramps, which is just pure low blood calcium. And hypocalcemia, meaning low levels of calcium in the blood, involving the back and the legs, and are very common. And in fact, that they have found, insidious, when something's insidious, it just means, well, we don't know where it came from. Insidious hypocalcemia can cause dementia, it can cause depression, it can even lead to psychosis, as I read here from the Merck Manual. This is the professional version of the Merck Manual, just a sentence. Muscle cramps involving the back and legs are common. Insidious hypocalcemia may cause mild diffuse encephalopathy, which is conditions in the brain, and should be suspected in patients with unexplained dementia, depression, or psychosis. Now, there's old Uncle Bob. Everything was fine with Uncle Bob. He comes home from the golf game, and then suddenly you find him up in a tree, and he doesn't want to come out of the tree.
He didn't drink his raw milk.
Well, and what's the first thing you're going to do? Well, you're going to get a big net underneath. You're going to try to hose him out of the tree or whatever, and then send him off to the state hospital when it may be nothing more than a serious calcium deficiency.
Yeah, but you can have a lot of calcium in your body and can't use it because you have
a vitamin F deficiency.
A vitamin F.
Or it could be, or it could be just low calcium even before F can do its job.
And it could be a vitamin D deficiency also.
Well, that's true, because if your diet is extremely low in calcium, it doesn't matter how much vitamin D or D3 you take.
Yeah.
And D3, of course, is the organic natural complex for absorbing calcium. But Dr. Royal Lee, over 70 years ago, stated in his vitamin newsletter that the vitamin F group of essential fatty acids that form vitamin F, the linolenic and the linoleic and arachidonic acids, all cause ionized calcium to flow into what are known as the intercellular fluids of the soft tissues of the body. In other words, we have calcium in two places. We have it in the blood, we have it in the tissues. Mm-hmm. And that's the interaction between vitamin D and vitamin F. Vitamin D pulls it out of the gut, gets it in the blood.
Which you need for immune support or immune help,
and to deliver the calcium wherever it needs to be. It needs to get on the bus.
It's on a bus, yes. Yep. And then the vitamin F pushes it off the bus and says, you need to go here and
without
here
vitamin F, you're going to stay on the bus. Yeah. And so when these two... there's the two essentials are alpha-linolenic acid and linoleic acid.
Those are the omega-3 fatty acids.
And right. And when these were discovered back in 1923, they were designated vitamin F.
Aha!
But in 1929, a mere 6 years later, research on rats...
who are now dead.
There it goes again. Showed that these two essential fatty acids are better classified as fats rather than vitamins. So they're considered fats ever since, but some people still refer to it as vitamin F, F for fat, because it's easier to discuss it and talk about it. Such as, this is from the Vitamin News 1936.
Long time ago.
Long before his time, Dr. Royal Lee said this: vitamin F can be considered an important factor in calcium assimilation because it reduces blood calcium by increasing its diffusion into the tissues.
So it pushes the calcium into the tissues.
And it cooperates with vitamin D by unloading the blood of its calcium load.
Getting off the bus.
Probably mainly into muscle cells, which are probably the greatest consumers of this element in the adult body. Let me skip down to vitamin F may also be important in aiding the formation of bone, for it definitely hastens the formation of the hypertrophic processes in arthritis. If given alone, while vitamin C has the opposite effect, it quickly reduces excess blood calcium, and it's an antidote for hypervitaminosis D, as in sunstroke.
Yeah, we've done a lot of podcasts on that.
Yes. So
let's see. So Dr. Lee talked about vitamin F, of course, transporting the calcium into the tissues, and it just keeps popping up. By the way, just so you know, calcium is the most abundant mineral in the body.
Yes, it is.
So if you add up all the minerals altogether, calcium is still the most abundant mineral.
Now, you wonder why we're talking about all this stuff, because we're getting to arachidonic acid. Now, I don't know if your subscription to Cell Calcium magazine has run out or not. Journal. It's a medically peer-reviewed journal on the calcium effect inside of a cell. Ooh, I just get chills thinking about it.
But they've known this for a long time.
This is arachidonic acid and the channels that arachidonic acid goes through. And I'm quoting directly from the study. A critical role, this is from the abstract, for arachidonic acid in the regulation of calcium entry and activation of calcium signals has become increasingly apparent in numerous studies over the past 10 years or so. Now, this is 10 years ago in 2009.
Yeah, 2009.
In reality, continuing here, the findings of activated calcium entry pathways that was dependent on the generation of arachidonic acid was unexpected. Mm-hmm. Now, what's all this got to do with muscles?
Well, what's it got to do with vitamin? I mean, Dr. Royal Lee discovering this 70 years ago.
Yep.
Oh, they're late to the party. They are late to the cart. So the study says, this journal, study in the journal says that it's absolutely necessary for arachidonic acid to be present in order for calcium to flow into the calcium channels.
Why?
Because muscles cannot contract or relax without the presence of calcium in the muscle tissues.
Right. Now, we have many times talked about this on podcasts in the past, radio shows, about how to get rid of Charlie horses and how to get rid of all this stuff. But we've never talked about the arachidonic acid involvement. We've just talked about getting calcium out of the blood into the bloodstream. But according to Cell Calcium magazine, 2009 in June, the journal, it says they were surprised to find out that the presence of arachidonic acid was necessary for the calcium to get in and out of the calcium channels.
To mobilize it, in other words.
To mobilize the calcium so that the muscle can contract and relax.
Yeah.
And so Cataplex F that we talk about all the time is primarily an arachidonic acid supplement that we use to mobilize calcium.
Yeah, to push the calcium into the muscles off the bus.
Right. And as an aside, people who've had heart attacks or serious hypertension problems might be on a calcium blocker drug, which, of course, is designed to decrease the contractive strength of the myocardium. So the heart doesn't beat so hard, so blood pressure comes down. Two of the most common that I've seen in my patients, Norvasc or Procardia, and there's several others. It actually blocks the arachidonic acid.
Yeah, the calcium channel.
It doesn't let the calcium channel work completely effectively, which can lead to muscle cramps in other parts of the body.
Yeah.
So
if you're having those and you're on a calcium blocker drug, know. Well, so let's read some more from Dr. Lee's writing 70 years ago before that journal wrote.
Yeah. Now, this is, my goodness, when is this? Do I have a date on this?
No.
All right. This is from Dr. Lee himself. Vitamin F transfers calcium from the blood into the tissues. Now, when he was writing this, remember, vitamin F was the essential fatty acids.
It was called that
he put into Cataplex F. Vitamin F transfers calcium from the blood into the tissues. Vitamin D puts calcium into the bloodstream. So if you get too much D, it locks up the calcium in the blood and you can't go into the tissues and you're in a bad way. That's sunstroke. You're out in the sun too much, you get too much D, your calcium is held into the blood supply and can't get into the tissues. The tissues run out. You get weak. Your perspiration is shut off and you won't live very long if you don't get into the shade. Vitamin F reverses that trend. It acts as an antidote for the D by diffusing the calcium again into the tissues, moves it along where it's supposed to go. That's the function. If you use natural cod liver oil, you'll get the two vitamins together, D and A, and you'll never know they even existed. In other words, he's not being funny. He's being very truthful here, because if you're eating correctly,
eating whole foods,
you never know vitamins exist. You don't know minerals exist. You don't know enzymes exist, because you never have a problem. It's just like you should never know you have a heart.
Yes.
You should never know you have a stomach or kidneys.
Yeah.
You know you have a bladder.
Yeah.
But lungs, a brain, you shouldn't even feel these things ever. And so he's saying,
what you crave.
Eat what you crave. But when you take them apart, he says, A and D, and then take the synthetic D, then you're in trouble. Synthetic vitamin D has killed thousands of youngsters, he says, because it caused calcification of the kidneys and created a vitamin F deficiency.
Yeah, that is just profound.
Yeah. So this is the third area of muscle cramps we want to talk about here. Vitamin D excess. Too much vitamin D. And my goodness, I've got patient after patient coming in, muscle cramps they never had before. And the first thing I ask him, are you taking vitamin D? It's a major cause of muscle cramps. No amount of vitamin F and calcium can get rid of a muscle cramp if you're giving yourself too much vitamin D.
Yeah, I think Cataplex F is probably one of the most profound tablets Dr. Lee has ever developed, the supplement Cataplex F.
Well, this is one of the most rapidly acting supplements, Cataplex F. Its influence on calcium is so fast it seems to defy logic. And I have a bottle of it next to my nightstand, next to my bed. And when you chew them up, if you get a leg cramp, and sometimes I do, and then you don't swallow them, you chew them up.
Yeah.
And you hold that little soupy mixture with your saliva under your tongue, 30, 45 seconds, the cramp is gone.
Yeah, we can watch this change on our heart sound recorder test.
Yes.
You'll have a person that doesn't have a second sound.
The heartbeat, the dub.
A second heartbeat.
They have lub, lub.
Dub.
There's no lub dub.
It's called the S2. So we have them chew up Cataplex F and we wait just a few minutes, maybe 5-10 minutes. And we see it's almost as magical. I mean, it's just magical. The S2, the second heartbeat reappears.
Yeah, so if you don't have a second beat, in other words, no S2, no second sound, you use Cat F, and voila, your second heartbeat shows up right away.
Yeah, so back to cramps in the legs, or even restless legs, which we have a podcast on that.
Yeah.
Chew up Cataplex F.
Yeah, now the longest and largest single muscle in the body is the gastroc. It's the main, you have two muscles in your calf, it's the main muscle in the calf, and that's where most people get a cramp. So let's talk a little bit about the difference in calcium supplements.
Yeah. Well, calcium lactate is the best calcium you can have. And we don't just say that because we offer calcium lactate in our clinic from Standard Process. Standard Process makes it because it is the best calcium you can have.
It only takes one enzymatic step to change it into calcium bicarbonate, the liquid form of calcium in the blood.
That you can use in your body.
Yeah, because calcium carbonate, the most common one out there, and I just said calcium bicarbonate. Calcium carbonate is not ionizable. It's an extremely stable molecule. It's what the mountains are made out of. If they're not made out of granite, they're made out of calcium carbonate. And calcium lactate is the easiest form to assimilate. Calcium citrate can be ionized, but it's a lot more difficult than calcium lactate.
It takes many more enzymatic steps.
Calcium citrate is the calcium you find in fruit or citrus fruits. Calcium malate is in apples. Nature provides calcium in a lot of different forms here.
Okay, so what does ionize mean?
Oh, yeah, I mentioned that. You're right. Well, it takes something that's very stable and makes it slightly unstable so the body can use it.
So it changes calcium to a form your body can more easily use, such as calcium bicarbonate that you talked about.
Right.
It's calcium lactate is one enzymatic step away from calcium bicarbonate.
It only needs one little change to become that.
So
that's why
what
mother's
ionizing
milk
means.
is full of calcium lactate, so the baby's energy is not consumed trying to free up the calcium that its growing body so desperately needs.
Okay, so let's go. What's the difference between ionizable and ionized calcium?
Well, ionizable, means it's capable of being ionized, and calcium lactate is very ionizable. As we've said, it only takes one step to do this, and that actually occurs in the bloodstream itself.
So calcium is ionized in the bloodstream, not in the stomach.
Yes.
That's why you have to chew up Cataplex F to get that sublingual absorption.
Yes.
I don't know if you know, but you have great big blood vessels in the tongue.
Oh, yeah, look in the mirror with your tongue up.
Yeah, well, that's especially on the underside of the tongue.
You see those veins there, yes.
And so that's why we say to chew up Cataplex F to get it into that bloodstream really quickly.
Yeah, you have enzymes and lactic acid in your saliva, which puts those Cataplex F tablets that you've chewed up practically into an almost perfectly absorbable solution, as if you're getting an IV right into the blood, because those big blue veins underneath your tongue are only a few cells away from the outside, and it just sucks it right in, and it starts to ionize the calcium when it comes in contact with the blood. So if you swallow it without chewing it during a cramp, it could take a half an hour or to an hour before it gets in the blood.
Because it has to, it doesn't work in the blood. But Cataplex F has an instant ionizing influence on calcium.
Yes.
So that calcium starts to leave the off-ramp or get off that bus out of the bloodstream into the tissues. And that's why chewing it works so fast on the cramp.
Calcium is a very positive mineral, and it's attracted to negative substances like lactic acid molecules or phosphorus, which is in most foods, phosphorus. Usually most people don't think about a phosphorus supplement because it's ubiquitous. It's just everywhere in most of our foods in the form of a phosphate salt. And so when it comes in contact with that calcium, it forms calcium phosphate, which is the principal mineral matrix of our bones. But in other words,
calcium's kind of a pretty dumb mineral. It just basically follows the law of gravity. What reacts on it, with the negative ions, because calcium's got a positive ion.
Yes.
What reacts on it is how it's used in the body. So if you take calcium on an empty stomach, you will get more use from it for your immune system.
Yeah.
If you take it with food, it's going to send it to the bones.
Right.
Because
it'll form the calcium phosphate.
That's right.
So just remember, the bottom line here, it's extremely easy for calcium lactate to convert into an ionized form of calcium, which is calcium bicarbonate, easier than any other form of calcium. And as I said, calcium citrate is ionizable, but it's more complex, and there's multi-steps involved. Calcium carbonate is almost non-ionizable. I mean, you could take some calcium carbonate, but you'd have to have an extremely acid stomach to start.
And a fantastic liver.
And a fantastic liver, yes.
And even still, it will only convert about 5 to 6% of that elemental calcium carbonate into ionizable calcium.
Yeah, this is why
blood.
I've always been on my patients about the coral calcium isn't what you think it is. I mean, it's calcium carbonate, and there's a reason why the corals are there. And there's a reason why they get bigger. Now, if there's some industrial thing dumping acid in the ocean water, yes, it's going to dissolve the coral base.
Yeah,
but most coral beds grow bigger and bigger and bigger because they don't dissolve.
Yeah. So Paul Harvey used to push.
Coral.
Do you guys remember Paul Harvey?
Yeah, I remember.
I really liked him.
And now the rest of the story. Nature also provides the biochemical, most simplistic way to get nutrition into the body, which is the easiest pathway.
So with a baby, which Mother Nature protects very well, lactic acid in the breast milk binds with the calcium in that breast milk to form calcium lactate, to transport the calcium from the mother to the baby in a form easily assimilated by the baby. So now you got to step one step backwards, and the mother needs to be eating calcium-rich foods and essential fatty acid-rich foods, like fish and that type of thing, or supplementing with them in order for the baby to get this calcium lactate.
And a great supplement would be black currant seed oil.
Yeah, and calcium lactate. Yeah, both of them.
And calcium lactate.
And
One of the signs of fever in a baby, especially during teething, is insufficient calcium intake.
Yeah, it raises the temperature of the baby to
start leaching calcium out of its growing, developing skeleton to form its teeth.
That's a little scary. So, yeah, you need to give your baby. We cover this a lot in our baby podcast. But anyway, also cramps form in pregnant women often because the fetus is drawing all the calcium out of the mother to form its own bones. So you want to take calcium lactate during pregnancy and while nursing, of course.
Right. Now, we've got another product to suggest for very, very sick people suffering from fatty liver disease or from just serious cellular degeneration problems that can't absorb Cataplex F very well.
Yeah, and these are people whose liver is so inefficient. We talked about non-alcoholic fatty liver disease in podcast 146 and 169. And these are the people that need this product. Dr. Lee made this for people that had, quote, they called it back then a wasting disease.
Yeah.
They couldn't, no matter what they gave them, they did not gain weight.
Right.
So he gave them, he put this Cataplex F through the liver and got it out the other side. Not sure how he did this, but he pre-digested it. This is for people whose liver cannot make that conversion. So all fat-soluble vitamins go through the liver for final processing into different forms. So
if your liver isn't healthy enough, it can't convert linoleic acid or release gamma-linolenic acid or arachidonic acid. And remember all the things that arachidonic acid helps. So when you don't respond to Cataplex F tablets, then these people need super EFF. Now, super doesn't mean Superman. Super just comes from a Greek word that means above. And so Superman was above man.
Before.
Right. And supercalifragilistic, it means it's above the califragilistic And so, but it's a vitamin F after it has been pre-digested and digested again through the cow liver, and it's extracted from a portion of the liver.
Now, don't be too discouraged because there is 1/3 of super EFF in Cataplex F.
Yeah, so taking super EFF is like an arachidonic acid IV drip. I like that.
Yeah, isn't that cool? But most of our medical society does not know this. This is just forbidden information.
It's amazing how ignorant the medical society is when it comes to nutrition. Now, this is from the Vitamin D Council. And we talk about them in our podcast on vitamin D hysteria. But
they should to know these things.
They should to know this, as our Egyptian guide once said. All right, I'm quoting directly from the Vitamin D Council. Yes, it is important to have adequate magnesium intake, and most Americans do not. A number of people have written about muscle cramps after they start sunbathing or taking vitamin D. This is likely caused from the neuromuscular hyperexcitability of magnesium deficiency that is somehow unmasked by higher vitamin D levels. I mean, this is absolute medical research hogwash.
Unbelievable.
Magnesium does not give you relief for cramps. It does not drive calcium from the blood into the tissues. They just don't know about vitamin F and the major research about arachidonic acid being the main pathway into the blood cell and into the cytosol, the fluid inside the cell itself.
Yeah. That relaxes
it's just amazing.
Yeah.
So
let's hear from some poor people suffering from cramps, writing about their pain and too much vitamin D from a popular blog in Great Britain.
Okay, you ready for this? This is the People's Pharmacy. Too much vitamin D resulted in lingering leg pain. Is it possible to get too much vitamin D? The question is asked of the People's Pharmacy.
So scary.
Nutrition advisors, such as registered dietitians, have worried about this for years because vitamin D, like vitamin A, is fat-soluble, and as a consequence, it could build up in the body stores, and eventually one could develop an overload. But, as the article goes on, is it definitely possible?
It is definitely possible.
But it is definitely possible to get too much vitamin D by taking supplements. This reader describes such a case.
Leg pain from vitamin D.
Yes, question.
My husband took vitamin D3 for over 5 years. He started having leg pain in his thigh and went to our family doctor. She prescribed prednisone for 2 weeks for a possible strained muscle, but his pain improved. His pain improved after taking prednisone.
Yeah, of course.
You think?
Yeah, any pain is going to improve when you take prednisone.
But returned after he finished that round of medication. She then referred him to an orthopedic doctor who did an x-ray of his leg and said his pain was probably due to muscle strain. He also prescribed prednisone for 2 weeks, and then again, the pain returned after the medicine was gone. Sometime later, I read that muscle and bone pain could be a side effect of vitamin D3 supplementation. He discontinued the supplemental vitamin D3 and has been pain-free ever since. What a relief.
My goodness. Now,
So,
here's the answer to the question. Too much vitamin D can lead to excess calcium in the bloodstream. Symptoms include muscle pain or weakness, as well as loss of appetite, dehydration, digestive upset, and fatigue, and the uncontrollable urge to run for Congress. Now, suppose back here earlier where it says the orthopedic doctor did an x-ray of his leg, suppose the orthopedic doctor had done a symptom survey of this person.
Yeah.
And once he read through it, he could look through and say, oh my goodness.
we would have helped him right away.
You need essential fatty acids. That's your problem. Here it is in a bottle. Right here. Cataplex F.
And we
That's all
do
you need.
happen to have it right next to it.
Oh my goodness.
Here's another little cute thing. Easy Immune System Health. It's a little blog in Great Britain. And this person says, I feel worse when taking larger doses of vitamin D. My rheumatologist had 50,000 units of vitamin D3 to be taken once a week for 8 weeks. After my first week, I had a muscle spasm in a new place and worsening back pain. Things got even worse. Fatigue, pain, and malaise after the second week, including more muscle spasms. I tried a third one and then called it quits. Actually, so did the rheumatologist, telling me to go down to 1,000 IUs per day. Well, I felt so crummy, I didn't start right away on those 1,000 per day. And the longer I stayed off the vitamin D, the better I felt. Now I'm taking about 500 per day in the Cal-Mag-D combo. I don't know what that is, but I'd be scared of it. And a boost of magnesium, because they still think magnesium is going to help with cramps.
Magnesium helps with the motivation of of calcium in the body, but it has absolutely nothing whatsoever biochemically to do with muscle contraction. You do not have magnesium channels.
So here's another one.
It just blows me away.
So here's another one that says, can foot cramps be a possible side effect of vitamin D? My internist prescribed, again, 50,000 units once a week for 12 weeks. During week 3, I started experiencing extreme foot cramps. After another 3 weeks and increasing frequency, I discussed briefly with my internist, who does not see any correlation. He's suggesting skipping a few doses to see if there is a decrease/elimination of cramping. See, they don't get taught nutrition in school.
No, not in med school they don't.
So then he says, I am also taking several meds for high blood pressure, cholesterol, and discussed my complaints with my cardiologist, who's ordered tests and blah, blah, blah. So all he was told, well, they didn't know. They just didn't know.
Yes.
Yeah, it's okay.
All right, next
now
one's my phone.
Okay.
My turn. Muscle spasm. Dr. Gott.
Yes,
ask Dr. Gott, MD.
.com.
Yes.
Just
muscle
in case you want to go there and ask him some questions.
Yes. Or you can ask us.
Yeah.
Muscle spasms linked to vitamin D usage. Dear Dr. Gott, I read your article on severe cramping and muscle spasms. I took 1,000 international units of vitamin D with my calcium for 10 months. I was up from 10 to 20 times a night with severe excruciating cramps.
And this was only 1,000 IU.
Then I ran out of vitamin D and didn't take it for a couple of days. I had no cramps during that time. I tried a lower dose of D 2 more times. The cramps started immediately. I stopped the D again and am finally cramp-free. Yeah. And then Dr. Ott goes on, of course, to bloviate with no mention of vitamin F whatsoever.
Yeah. Bloviate. What? Bloviate.
Well, it means to talk, not just to chat, to go on and on. You know, speaking in some empty, pretentious, full of himself manner, usually in a pompous way, often associated with politicians. Oh, wait, I might be describing myself here.
Yeah, so Dr. Gott talks about everything in the world.
No, I meant the full of himself, pompous stuff.
That's true. Dr. Gott, he talks about everything in the world in his answer except for vitamin F because he has no clue. Yeah. So this person had induced a vitamin F deficiency because of all the vitamin D he was taking, which traps calcium in the bloodstream, creating a vitamin F deficiency.
Yeah. Now that's the takeaway line. Vitamin D traps calcium in the blood, creating a vitamin F deficiency. Now we have nothing bad to say about vitamin D3 unless it's trapped in the bloodstream.
And we have nothing to say bad about lactic acid unless it's trapped in a muscle.
Yeah, so let's give you a quick review and a recap here, and then we will be on our way.
Yeah. To reduce heart cramps, use Cataplex E2 for oxygen starvation, also used for high altitude sickness. And to reduce menstrual cramps, use blackcurrant seed oil, which has the highest gamma-linolenic acid for the GLA deficiencies, which everybody tends to have these days. Use it in the days before your period and during, and use Cataplex F, which pushes calcium into the muscle tissues, and it relaxes all your cramping.
Yes.
And you also may want to supplement with calcium lactate if you're not getting much calcium in your diet.
Right, and to quickly dissipate leg muscle cramps, you want to use Cataplex F. And you throw it onto the basketball court, the football field. These poor athletes don't have a clue, and neither do their trainers.
Yeah, throw the bottles out there on the base. Yeah, you'll get thrown out.
Yeah, that's right.
But you see them. You see these $20 million a year players cramping up, and I just want to take
something as simple as Cataplex F.
I just want to take this.
They're out there massaging their muscle.
Yeah, hydrating, get them out of the sun, and you just want to throw a bottle at them.
Those two things are important.
Yes.
They need to be hydrated.
They do.
You need to get them out of the direct sun. But then you have them chew up a dozen Cataplex F.
They'll be back on the field.
2 minutes later, they're back out there as a running back.
Yeah, for pennies.
Yes.
Yeah. So the number one cause of muscle cramps, especially the large, strongest muscles of the body, is tissue calcium starvation. You didn't know you had that, did you? Yeah, that means you need Cataplex F tablets. It's your number one best friend.
Right, and to stop chronic cramping in the legs and the feet, be very careful of your vitamin D intake, or supplement with Cataplex D or cod liver oil.
Which is a real whole food.
But that synthetic stuff is just ridiculous. So don't take your synthetic vitamin D or D3. Throw it out. Even 5,000 IUs a day can be very seriously wrong.
Well, we have been working with Doug Steffen, who you have a national radio show with once a week, and he would take the Cataplex F, and he loved it for his leg cramps and restless legs, but he would say, it just doesn't work sometime. Well, I'm not kidding. For the last, I don't know, how long has he been listening to, or we've been talking with him?
Years.
He was taking the synthetic vitamin D. This was 2 months ago?
Yeah.
And he grabs his bottle and he shakes it, and you can hear those synthetic pills just rattling around, and he
throw it away, Doug.
So he threw it in the garbage, and he's like, oh, my cramps have all gone.
The cramps stopped. Now, we have a podcast on this very subject, 140, the deadly vitamin D hysteria.
Yeah, people just don't believe this. They're like, my doctor told me I'm super deficient in vitamin D, and they can't give up their vitamin D. So if you need to supplement, then take the Cataplex D, which is arachidonic acid. The standard process gets it in a really scary...
Not arachidonic acid. It's cholecalciferol.
Oh, that's right. Cholecalciferol. But they get it from scraping the fur of animals where they create the...
Well, it comes from the lanolin.
Yeah, from the oils.
Yeah. And
from their fur.
It's a purified food-based vitamin D.
Yeah, we do it in our kidneys. They do it in their hair.
Oh, and you could do it in...
It's really gross.
Or you could just get it from cod liver oil.
Yeah, or just take cod liver oil. Or get out in the sun, you guys.
Or just get some sun exposure.
Get out in the sun. It doesn't cause skin cancer. So you can take your Cataplex F in the morning as a muscle cramp preventative, but if you take it in the morning, you still end up getting muscle cramps later in the day or the evening. It's because there's so many other reasons your body will use the essential fatty acids, the vitamin F. So you use it all up. Yeah,
so other things that fatty acids could be doing during the day: brain function, hormone production, nerve health and transmission, the myelin formation around the nerve, emotional balance with the stress. It's involved with the cortisol, your stress hormone, almost every function in the body to some degree or another, directly or indirectly, is essential fatty acid dependent. And Cataplex F is the essential fatty acids in a pill.
So we suggest if you get cramps at night, take more Cataplex F at bedtime.
Yeah, you may just need more before bed, especially if you're somewhat deficient in this nutrient anyway.
And it's highly recommended to use heavy doses of Cataplex F during pregnancy. Also, you need calcium lactate, of course. If you just go to our website and search pregnancy, you'll see our prenatal supplement protocols for pregnant women.
ForbiddonDoctor.com. So what about blood pressure pills? Well, the calcium channel blockers. I mean, why do you become a cardiac invalid when you start using this stuff? Because they stop the arachidonic acid pathway of getting calcium into the muscle contraction process. In other words, it greatly decreases the strength of the muscle contraction, which in some serious cases, I understand, when you're recovering from a survivable heart attack, you need to be careful with the heart while it's recovering. But why? How do they work? Well, they stop the very thing that can lead to cramps in other parts of the body.
Yeah, well, the reasoning is that following a heart attack, the heart shouldn't beat so hard
Yes, exactly.
while it recovers. No nutrition is ever recommended. No support of the heart. Just stay away from this and stay away from that and don't eat this and don't make your heart work too hard. Medicine just lives in a vacuum.
Yeah, so when you use these calcium channel blocker drugs, there's a consequential decrease in muscle energy and strength of the heart, and you find yourself sitting around continually with no energy to do anything.
Yeah.
And so while the heart does need to rest and heal if you survive the heart attack, there are more natural ways to speed up the healing of the heart, such as Cardiotrophin PMG, Cardio Plus, black currant seed oil, and a great herb called hawthorn. And, of course, Cataplex E2, Cataplex F, calcium.
Yeah, we've gone over this a lot in
Yes.
our heart podcast. But
We have plenty of heart podcasts.
just so you know, we're not saying to go off your doctor-recommended medication.
No, not
your
at all.
calcium channel blockers, your high blood pressure pills.
Your ACE inhibitors, there's another thing that
Yeah.
slows down the heart that gets rid of the, works on the acetylcholine.
Okay, we're not saying to go off those. Not at
No,
all.
not at all.
Every body, like your body, my body, is different. And there may be very critical reasons your
Yeah.
doctor prescribed the medication. Critical is in life-saving. But open up a discussion with him or her about this.
Yeah, and lastly, calcium requires a hot stomach acid. I mean, it requires hydrochloric acid to break it down, just the way iron requires hydrochloric to break it down. And most minerals as well, because remember, calcium is a very heavy, dense mineral, and as such, it's more difficult to absorb, so getting it broken down well helps it get into the intestinal wall and into the blood.
And that's where it does the conversion, is in
Yes.
the blood. So I take 3 Zypans when I take calcium lactate tablets at night, or any product that has calcium in it, like Mentran, which is calming minerals. So it helps break those down. It also is full of calcium, Mentran. It's a wonderful product. And Calma Plus I often take at night too. So I take 3 Zypans. So I hope this has helped you. We hope this has helped you with the cramping of your legs, your menstrual cramps, and your heart, most importantly. So thank you for listening to the Forbidden Doctor podcast. Don't forget to take our obligation-free symptom survey to get a free personalized supplement protocol. Take the survey. You'll get an email and a login. In your email, you'll get a login and a password that you get to pick, and you get to see your own personal protocol when you log back into our website. And you can also see your most favorite saved personal protocols that you can save in there. Our website is just amazing. And I want you to know that every survey is reviewed personally.
Yes, it is.
We don't just, it's not a computer spitting these things out. They go back and forth. They call us often. Our nutritionists call us.
Yes.
Talk to us about what's going on. And remember, our website and our clinic are here for you always. You can always call at 801-523-1890.
And remember, many of you may be finding us for the first time. Keep in mind the protocols on our website and what we're talking about are only available to logged-in users. But you can create an account instantly by taking our free, no-obligation symptom survey on the homepage of ForbiddenDoctor.com. And understand, this survey saves you money in the long run because you're not taking supplements you don't need.
Or synthetic supplements.
Definitely synthetics. And all of this at no charge to you.
And always remember, your patronage keeps our podcast on the air.
The statements made in this podcast about specific products have not been... Boy, that sounded really good, didn't it?
Yeah.
I wonder if I can get a job on one of those quiz shows in afternoon TV. And what's behind door number... I'll tell you what it is. It's a disclaimer.
It's your years of radio.
Yes, the statements made in this podcast about specific products have not been evaluated by the United States Food and Drug Administration and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. All information provided or in any information contained on or in any product label or packaging or this podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for advice from your physician or other healthcare professional.
Thank you for listening to this Forbidden Information and our Forbidden podcast. Join us next time for another in-depth discussion of forbidden knowledge.
We'll see you then. All right.
Thank you for listening to the Forbidden Doctor podcast. If you are curious about long life energy enzymes or ageless thyroid, you can purchase them without a membership from our website at forbiddendoctor.com Or get our enzyme formula from Amazon.com by searching the full term, Long Life Energy Enzymes. Don't forget to take our obligation-free symptom survey to get a free personalized supplement protocol recommended for you by Dr. Jack, Mary, or one of our qualified nutritionists. Take the survey, get a call from our nutritionist to create a protocol and a patient login, then use that login to see your own personal protocol along with any favorites you've saved from our symptom library. Remember, our website and our clinic are here for you always.